Adam and I are going to talk about how you can apply some of these tax strategies. Guys, this is I have a lot more numbers and details on my slides. I'm going to run through them quick. And then Adam will be going through some markets and property examples, showing you where we think the best opportunity is right now, especially in Q4, to not only make good investments that you can take these tax advantages on, but also very strategic investments that are likely not going to be around in 2026 based on where we think the market is headed. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with rent to retirement, we're the nation's leading turnkey investment company. We really like focusing on new construction. Our goal is to first identify a market that has the best investment opportunity based on our data points, and then surround you with a team of professionals that can manage the property for you, an excellent builder to build the house that offers wholesale type of discounting through our network, lenders, real estate tax professionals, everything you need to be a successful investor long-term, as well as a coaching and guidance to get you there. So our goal is to find the best markets and deals across the country where everything is handled for them and bring them to you. One of our biggest value adds, besides offering a comprehensive approach, is we have about 1.5 million total investors across all platforms within our community, and that's growing every single day. And because of that, our community of investors buys hundreds, if not thousands, of houses across the country, and we have partners with some of the biggest builders like D.R. Horton, Lennar, Toll Brothers, LGI, where we can go to them and negotiate better deals because it's a bulk type of discount because of economies of scale, and pass those discounts on to you as the investor that you would not get access to on your own or anywhere else simply because of the volume that we're talking about. And that's a very creative thing that our investors can use and are currently using to make some really strategic investments right now that will increase their ROI. I'll go through some examples, but that's really, I think, one of the big value adds that we have right now that we're bringing to the table is the fact that you can buy new construction A-class investment properties in some of the best locations throughout the country, where you can get anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 of what we call incentives. And these incentives are very powerful because you as the investor gets to choose how you want to use them. You can take them as cash back at closing, which is not something, again, you'll find anywhere else. You can use those to buy down the rate with these lenders to significantly low rates. You can do it. You can take a below market value pricing to actually have an immediate price reduction where you have true equity in the house that allows you to cash flow better, or a combination of these things. And it can be extremely powerful. So using a property example, let's say you have a $300,000 new construction home that's offered on our marketplace. Let's say that home has a 10% incentive. Most builder incentives that we offer is between 6 to 12%. We've had as high as 17%, and that's a percentage of the purchase price. So let's just use a numeric example. A $300,000 new construction home that has a 10% incentive, that's $30,000 that you as the investor gets to use however you want, just coming through our network. We don't charge investors anything to work with us. Of course, we have our coaching program and education program through the Academy. I know we have a lot of Academy members on this call tonight. But you don't have to go through the Academy to invest with us. This is open to anyone just participating in our community, which doesn't cost you anything. We're here to educate you and help you advance your goals. So on this $300,000 house, if you had a 10% incentive, that's $30,000 that you get to use as, again, price reduction. You can buy that house for $270,000. You can take $30,000 back at closing. Think about that. If you're putting 20% down, say with Jeff or another lender to buy this house using a conventional loan, and you're getting 10% back, that allows you to be into the same house and cash flow the same as if you're putting 20% down, but you have 10% back. That skyrockets your ROI. And that's a really creative way that you can scale your portfolio over time and stretch your capital, buy more properties. Think about it from a tax side. If you're putting 20% down on a property and you bought with just one single family house, instead, by investing in some of our builder incentive properties, you put 20% down on two houses. Now you have double the tax benefits. We have people that are writing off 6 or 7 figure incomes every single year by stretching their capital further. And this is just some of the things that we help to make available to our investor community. This is just one example of another creative loan option that we have. This is not the right option for everyone, but this is just the right option for, possibly some people, but this is an example to get some wheels turning. We have lenders, local credit unions that will finance up to 95% on a property. That means you need to put 5% down on that property. You do need to evaluate cash flow. Not all properties will cash flow at all or could be negative with a 95% loan because you're your loan payment's higher. But for some people, that could be really strategic. This loan has no PMI, no mortgage insurance. Again, if you're paying normally less than 20% down on a property with a conventional loan, you pay mortgage insurance. There's no prepayment penalty. I'm not promoting this loan. I'm just saying this is one option that we help our investors put in place where it can be or potentially could be very strategic. So again, if you're buying a new construction property with 5% down, you're getting 10% back because of the builder incentive. Not only is that incentive covering all of your down payment and your closing costs, you're actually getting money back in your pocket that you keep as reserves, use on another investment property. That can be extremely strategic and help you really maximize your tax benefits. We have some high income professionals that their whole goal in real estate, they're cash flow agnostic. I'm not saying we don't pay attention to cash flow. They just don't need cash flow right now. Well, what they do need is tax benefits. And this is a way that they can really stretch their capital and maximize their tax benefits, especially if they're doing this cost segregation strategy where, you possibly could create a 6 or 7 figure loss without really being into these properties much or at all. And most people combine these things with, say, they put 20% down on one, they want to buy another property. Again, it's all about matching the right loan product with your specific goals and helping you scale your portfolio. Let's talk a little bit about the short-term loophole and real estate professional status. I'm not a CPA. Amanda and Matt had to go. You guys can follow up with them with more specific questions, but I'm extremely familiar with the tax benefits in real estate and how to apply it because I'm doing this stuff every single year. Every single year my wife and I, we take cost segregation on every single property that we own. We are real estate professionals. It's a benefit of working in the real estate business. And I think that's really strategic, but that's been something that's helped us really scale our portfolio dramatically. We run a really successful business of rent retirement. Our goal every single year is to buy enough properties to offset all of our active income. And it's been harder some years, but some years we've created losses that carry forward into future years. And that's just more money that we're able to snowball into more real estate to buy more assets and really scale our portfolio. Let's just use an example. Matt and Amanda talked about this. I don't know if they really talked about the math, though. And this is something that is very familiar to me because we have investors doing this all the time. When I run a cost segregation study on one of my houses, my napkin math is 30%. And there are nuances. You got to remove land. You can't accelerate land or can't depreciate land at all. But in most cases, in the areas that we're operating in, the land is very cheap. And so I usually take an estimate of just not even removing land, total home price, and take 30% of that. The reality is most of my studies come in anywhere between 30 to 45%, or 35 to 44% of the depreciable value. And what that means is that's a percentage if you're doing cost segregation and accelerating the depreciation and taking it against your active income via rep status or the short-term loophole. That's the percentage that you would probably realistically see as a tax deduction. And this varies. I mean, in a cost segregation study, you hire an engineer to go out and provide a study of all the things that aren't going to last the entire life of the property, and they accelerate that. They break them out into 5 and 15 year, and you take it all in year 1. And I know this is high level. I'm talking fast. We'll go through this. Just think about the numbers for right now, not too much of the strategy. So you buy a $300,000 house as an example. 30% of that is $90,000. So if you're doing a cost segregation study on this $300,000 house, you would anticipate conservatively, probably you'll have a $90,000 deduction against all your income source, you, your spouse, all the sources of income. Doesn't matter if it's active, passive, again, going through short-term loophole or doing rep status. That's extremely beneficial, right? Because if you put 20% down on this house, that's $60,000 to get a $90,000 tax deduction. Now, in true tax savings, it depends on your tax bracket, but that could be, $25,000, $30,000. That could be, a good portion of a down payment on another house. So this is just things to think about. We have a lot of people that are using some of our builder incentives to buy mass amounts of real estate. I think that's kind of the next slide here. So again, if you're using 5% down loan or a combination of some of these other creative loan structures like what Jeff talked about, this is a creative way that you can buy a lot of real estate, and your actual cash tax savings will likely be larger than your down payment. It's free real estate, guys. This is how you scale your portfolio. Now, depreciation is always recapturable. You can go through and 1031 exchange your property into other properties and kick that can down the road in perpetuity, and your children get a step-up basis. That's a whole nother lecture, but those are just things to think about. This is how you build generational wealth. So think about this for a moment. If you bought $1 million worth of real estate, you bought 5 $200,000 houses. If you're using your normal conventional loan, you put 20% down, that's $200,000. Or you can use a 5% down loan option potentially, that's $50,000 to buy $1 million worth of real estate. And if you think about what that 30% is on the $1 million, I mean, that's $300,000 that could save you possibly a net $180K in taxes, depending on what your tax bracket is and your state taxes. Certainly, if you have $1 million of income, that's dramatic. This is something that everyone can apply, okay? And again, with the incentives that the builders offer, this is where you can stack these strategies. You're combining all these things with the tax benefits of real estate investing, these creative loan options, and then you use the builder incentive as one piece in the puzzle to make you a very strategic investor that can allow you to scale your portfolio quickly, buying quality new construction homes in some of the fastest growing markets, like what Adam is going to talk about, and how you reduce your tax liability every single year. Every dollar that you're able to save not paying in taxes, and this is something the IRS wants us to do. You should not feel bad about not paying taxes, because the IRS has these in place to incentivize entrepreneurs and real estate investors to stimulate the economy, to provide housing, because we have an affordability crisis in the U.S. and we have a deficit of housing. The IRS is happy to incentivize us to do these things as real estate investors because we're stimulating the economy, we're providing housing. It's a necessity for people. That's the way you should think about doing this, right? And often I think we forget about the aspect of providing quality housing for people. That is a huge benefit. But look, every dollar that you save in paying taxes is another dollar that you can now reinvest to buy additional real estate that has additional tax savings. You get this snowball effect, and that's how you build tremendous wealth over time. So, Adam, let's go ahead and go into, and would you, before you get started, will you put in a link? I know we're going kind of long here, where people can set up appointments with our team. Can you put in the link how you can schedule with the rent retirement team? If you have a rent retirement strategist who actually spends some more time to go through these with you guys in great detail, like, that's really what it's about. Again, we don't charge our investors anything. We make our money through building and selling houses and running our marketplace, which builders have to apply to and pay to participate in. So it's no cost to investors. We're here to help you strategically build your portfolio. We're passionate about real estate and some of the benefits that we're talking about. And we have some really unique deals because we move volumes as a community. And because of that, we get to negotiate with builders to offer quality new construction houses to our investors where everything is handled for you. And you get these huge incentives that you would not access on your own because of the size of our community and what we're able to negotiate. So Adam's going to put in there. Jeff's still hanging out with us, guys. After we have, I think, 3 or 4 markets, which are our top recommendation to explore before the end of 2025. And then we'll stick around for some Q&A. So if you guys have additional questions, throw it in the Q&A. And Adam and Jeff will do our best to answer those. Adam, tell us about San Antonio.
So San Antonio, it's right down the road from Austin, where I'm hanging out. And this is one of the properties we have available there. This is a tenanted new build. When I say new build, this one's about a year or 2 old because it's had a tenant in place who was hoping to buy the property, but ended up not being able to. And so they want to stick around, and you can come in and buy the house for that $301,900. It is actually rented for $2,015. And so after you run all the numbers with Texas cash flow and Texas property taxes and everything else, we expect you to make about $400 a month on it, giving you a total ROI of 13%. And if you look at the cost seg, like Zach was saying, of somewhere around that 30%, you're looking at a cost seg potentially saving, wiping out $90,570 of your income, which, if you look at your taxes, that's probably what, 45, 50K of taxes that were just saved with this property, I would estimate. So this is just one of them. We have quite a few available in the area, but there's, they're all rented for slightly different amounts. We have different floor plans. So, work with your strategist. I put the link in the chat of where you can book a call. So book a call, talk with us, figure out, which one might be right for you. So that's kind of the property. But if you want to know kind of why San Antonio, Zach, if you want to go to the next slide, I put some facts about San Antonio. You hear about San Antonio mostly if you're in my world.
Can you not see
Uh,
this slide, Adam? It's on.
Sorry, I was looking at my thing. Sorry. So if you are a Texan, you or really anywhere, you don't think of San Antonio as a massive place. Just because you hear small market Spurs and that kind of stuff. They don't have a football team. They don't have a baseball team. It's the seventh biggest city in the country. Uh, it's uh, it's like the third or fourth biggest in Texas, but it's the seventh largest in the United States. If you look at the population growth, I mean that's 4 or 5 years, 4 years really of growth because we don't have 2025 numbers. It's averaging 1.6% growth a year. The U.S. is not doing anything near that. It's headquarters for numerous massive companies and home price growth. I mean, you're looking at that's roughly 8 to 9% a year since 2017 that it's going up, and the median sales price in the area is right at 290,000, which is right around the area that we're selling these homes. So they're not low priced homes, they're not high priced homes, they are median homes in the market. And so this and the corridor between San Antonio and Austin is just becoming one big city. So it's just it's in a rapidly growing area, we'll say right now. So we love San Antonio, we love Texas in general, but the numbers in San Antonio can work. If you want to go outside of Texas, and don't worry, we're coming back into Texas in just a minute. If you want to go outside of Texas, you can go right on over to Alabama. We have some good stuff in Calera, which is a higher income area around this in the surrounding Birmingham area. You can get a property for 345,000 roughly that will expected to be rented at 2350. This is with our property management team we've been working with for years and has done a really great job for us in managing. We expect you to cash flow almost $800 a month with a total ROI of 16%. If you can get RE Pro and do a cost seg, you can save about 103,000 on your taxes, which equates to keeping about 50 grand probably in your pocket. So, the area of Calera, if you want to go to the next one, has, if you look at that median income in the area, $82,441 in 2023. We don't have the other numbers yet that I could find, but 82K in 2023 can support these rents that we're talking about all day, every day. That part won't be a problem. It's a really nice area to live. As you can see, the poverty rate is well below the U.S. average. Home ownership rate is 80%, which will support appreciation in the area. As you see, in 8 years, it appreciated 83%. So if you get 80% home ownership and a population growth in a decade of 42%, prices are going to go up. I mean, that's just, there's not enough building you can do to keep up with that. And I just thought it was interesting that most people who are moving to Calera, moving from Atlanta. So they're getting away from the blue and going there. And then we go to Conroe, which is, you probably may not have heard of it if you don't live in Texas, but it's a suburb of Houston. It's kind of northwest of Houston. Houston, they're just adding loops and adding loops because the population of Houston continues to skyrocket. This one is lower price than the others. It's $261,900. It's rented out for $1,795. We expect you to cash flow right at $400 with a 15% ROI and a potential cost seg of 78 grand, which 39, 40 grand saved on taxes. So these are, like I said, rented out, ready to go. If you to move in, I mean, we can tell you everything you need to know about this property if you talk to a strategist.
Adam,
There.
all these properties on what I don't see on here is I think the incentives, which I know varies per
Oh,
house.
so yeah. So sorry, the ones in Texas, all you can get 10% on those.
On this one in Conroe, you could get $26,000 cash back, price reduction, buy the rate down combination. In the other ones in San Antonio,
San Antonio, you get right at 30,000 back.
okay.
And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if someone uses everything towards their rate, you can get them to, is it 375?
Yeah, those are the options I was talking about earlier. It's 375 on the 10-year ARM, 4.5 on a 30-year fixed, and then 5.5 on a DSCR.
Yeah,
That's on investment property that someone could buy down in theory 4.5%. I guess the question is, like, does it make sense to put all that money to buy down rate? I mean, that's a pretty low rate. And maybe if it's a long-term hold, it might make sense to buy the rate down some, take some cash back. Maybe should think about refinancing in a year. I mean, Jeff, speak to that real quick. What do you think? Like, how are most people using these incentives?
It just goes back to each client and their objective, what their primary objective is. Because, I mean, like I was mentioning, if the primary objective is to maximize cash flow, then, like a lot of our clients, they're getting older. All they want is cash flow, and they're planning on, handing the property over, or somebody's inheriting it after they pass. A lot of times those clients they're just looking at it from that perspective of, how can I get as much money coming in on a monthly basis? And the way you're going to meet that is by buying the rate down as far as possible. On the other side, and this is the other side of the spectrum, or the pendulum, our clients are looking at it more from, growth mode. They want to scale as quickly as possible. They're using very little to buy the rate down, if any, and using that money to fund the next deal, to keep the money moving and buy as many properties as possible. And then everywhere in between. We have some clients that are starting to scale their business slower. They only want to buy a couple properties a year, and cash flow is one of the goals that they're trying to meet, but they want to balance that out. We do half of the incentive toward a rate buy down, and then the other half toward property management or cash back. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and it really goes back to what each individual client's goals are.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Point is that there's options, and that you have a team surrounding you, helping you determine what is the best thing to do based on your short and long-term goals. Adam, tell us, I guess let's finish off with this property, and then we'll get into Q&A.
Yeah. And just so people know, in Alabama, it's roughly 6% that you can get back there. All right. And so if you want to go to the next one, we can talk about Houston and Conroe in specific. It's a suburb of Houston, which Houston is the fourth largest city in the U.S. Conroe saw a population growth of 60% over the last decade. And since the census, the last estimate I saw is they've grown 27% since then, which is massive. You've got to build if you want to keep up with that. The median list price is $384,000, which is well above anything that we're selling, and it's appreciated in 8 years, right at 61.5%. So, I mean, the Houston suburbs are booming. Houston's booming. We've talked about it before. It's not an oil town anymore. It's got the third most Fortune 500 headquarters in the country behind, I believe it's New York and Chicago or something like that. So it's massive, and it's going up. So, I mean, it's a great place to be. Texas is expected to continue to grow. I think it was actually I saw an article recently that said it was actually the top. They expect over the next, before 2035, it should be the most moved into state in the country. So it'll continue that for the next decade. And so it's
obviously some tax advantages on, owning rental real estate. Taxes can be high. Property taxes are a little bit higher in Texas, but that's just a variable that you compare with all the other variables, right? And really, where I've learned over time, where I make the most money in real estate, definitely applying the tax advantages, but over time is investing in areas that are growing, and where there's a discrepancy between supply and demand. So, guys, it's time. Obviously, as you heard Jeff and Amanda both speak earlier about, and we'll echo the point that there is still time to buy properties before the end of the year to take advantage of some of the tax benefits we talked about, but you do have to own them. You have to put them into service before the end of the year. And so really now's the time, right? I mean, I would say once we get into mid to late November, in about a month now, it's going to be too late, because you may not be able to both close on the loan and put it into service before the end of the year. You need to own the property in the calendar year. It needs to be put into service. If you're going to go the short-term loophole route, you have to rent it out at least once or twice, right? And that takes time to get the listing built and things like that. Now is the time. The most important thing is now is the time to buy, so you can own the property this calendar year. That way you can take advantage of it. You do not need to do your cost segregation this year. You can do your cost segregation study up until the time that you file taxes, which could be April or even October if you're extending, but you got to own the property and put it into service this year. So I guess with that, let's get into Q&A. Maybe Adam, you can help me run through these and throw some at Jeff as well.
Jeff, Mark wants to know if he acquires a property at a discount at an auction, like a 300,000 market value acquired at 200K. Can that 100K qualify as a down payment for a DSCR loan?
Unfortunately, no. It's going to be the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value. There are, full transparency, there are some hard money lenders that may look at that a little differently out there that you may be able to find, but strictly from a DSCR perspective, the type of financing that we're doing, it's always, and same thing with conventional. It's going to be the lower of the two between the purchase price and the appraisal. The only caveat to that is if you buy it at 200 and then you go do a quick rehab to it in a few weeks, we can go off of new value as long as you spiff the place up and do a quick rehab. Then we can go off of and do a cash out refinance up to 75 LTV based off of new value, and there's no waiting period.
There you go. No waiting periods. Just if it's in beautiful shape, just get a cleaner in there, right?
Yeah.
Go and clean it up and get it reappraised.
Landscaping and
mow the yard.
Yeah.
Clean it, sweep the cobwebs and refinance.
Sounds like a great deal though if you're getting it 100K under market.
Yep, absolutely. So if y'all have more questions about this, throw them up in the Q&A. We don't have a ton in there at the moment. So
I saw one in there about the DSCR, the anonymous up top.
Yep. So obviously you talked about the DSCR loan is based on rental income. The ratio of payment to rent. What else are they looking at? What else should people make sure when they come to it? And also, if you could touch on kind of where you talked about the breaks in rate, like 15%, 20%, 25%. Can you talk about the ratio and where those breaks are, where it really helps or hurts
pricing,
getting your pricing?
So first off, I'm going to answer the initial question. So the other things that we're looking at, when we're looking at DSCR loans, it's for turnkey properties. It's not for properties that need work. I mean, it needs to be in livable condition. Livable condition is debatable. I mean, as long as you can rent it and there's a functional kitchen, bathroom, the property needs to have normal wear and tear at the most. It cannot exceed that. And the appraiser is the one that actually will come out and verify that. So we try to get out ahead of that as much as possible. If there are potential condition issues like, carpet that needs to be stretched, rooms that need to be repainted, that kind of stuff. So as long as it looks like it's ready to rent, you should be fine. And then the other things that we're looking at too, even though we're treating the property as a business and we're looking solely at the cash flow analysis of the business, we need to show somebody behind the loan that has, decent credit, that's able to go behind the loan, even if we're closing in an LLC, because we need to make sure that it's not a shell company and that there is a live human being behind it that has a decent credit score. With that being said, the minimum credit score on DSCR loans is a 620, but if you are below a 680, there's some pretty big pricing hits and you end up having typically to put about 25% down. But just know that credit technically is not a hindrance in that sense, where even if you've had some credit issues, there is still some options for DSCR financing as well as conventional financing. So, and then the other things they're looking at, like you said, the DSCR, we want to show, especially at the higher leverage or the higher loan to values, 80% and 85, it has to have a 1 DSCR or above, which just basically means the rent needs to be covering the all-in principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Or if it's an interest only, ITI. So we need to make sure that that's covering. If it's not, then the minimum down is going to be 25%. And there are situations where we have clients that are buying properties that are not cash flowing, and they have what's called a sub 1 DSCR, meaning that the rent does not cover the total monthly payment. Typically, those clients are buying it for tax purposes because they need a write-off against their taxes, or they're trying to buy the property potentially as a short-term rental, and the rates are a little bit better sometimes with a sub 1 or under 1 DSCR versus a short-term rental analysis. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that, but that's one of the other workarounds. But where the pricing adjustments really occur is anything above 1, you're going to get the better pricing. 1.25 is the next step up, and then 1.5 is top tier. If we fall below 1, there's pricing adjustments to the other side where probably, rates get a little bit worse if it's the rent's not covering.
That's awesome. Jeff, I see a few more questions in here, but I do want to just rapidly answer, because we don't have a ton of time left. I want to rapidly answer some of these questions about properties, and then Jeff, if you're around, we'll throw a couple more back at you. So I'm just going to go through this rapid fire, Adam. Feel free to jump in anytime.
I will say one thing: the wording and the terminology about like the short-term rental rent and this, that, and the other. That's the kind of verbiage that you got to work with the lender who knows what they're doing, because that lender I talked about earlier would not be able to answer and say the words that Jeff just said. So
having the right team, right? All right, here we go. What are some examples of rental losses for long-term or short-term to offset W-2 income as rep? As real estate professional status, I think the thing to think about, how you think about your losses on real estate, is that on an investment property, it's a business, and there's all these different tax offsets that you get to offset your rent. Now, if it's a passive investment, you get to take all those things against the income on the property. That's why we call cash flow on properties tax-free income, is because if you're doing it appropriately and you have leverage on a property, it should be tax-free income. If you earn $100,000 from your rental properties, that could be the equivalent of earning $140,000, $150,000, $160,000 of earned income, because you really shouldn't be paying any taxes on that. Things you get to offset against your rental income is going to be your mortgage, insurance, really any expense related to the property, any repairs you're doing, the taxes, the insurance, the management fee, the the closing costs on the property. All these things are offset. The depreciation is the biggest one. Even normal depreciation over time should offset a large portion of your rental income, so you're reporting a loss on a positively cash flowing property. Everyone needs to do that. Everyone does that. The IRS requires us to take depreciation on properties. Where things get really exciting, though, is you can take those additional losses and you can accelerate your depreciation if you're doing a cost segregation against all income sources. So that was a long answer to say that's how you should be thinking about this, and that was kind of answering a couple questions. Claire,
I will say, I always tell people, if you can use the deductions that real estate gives you and you still have to pay taxes on your cash flow, congratulations, you had an amazing cash flow year.
or you're doing something wrong, or you're missing something, right?
That's what I said. If you're taking advantage of all the other stuff and you're paying taxes on your cash flow, congratulations. That's a great cash flow properties.
I mean, again, having the right team of people to guide you and help you do this right, so it helps you optimize your portfolio and be successful. Claire,
there have been some questions in there that it's been asked a couple times. It's to do a cost seg. Do you have to be a real estate professional? And the answer is no. You can do, to the best of our understanding, you can do a cost seg on any property you want. It's just what income is it going to offset? If you're not a real estate professional, it's going to offset passive income. So if you have, real estate income, but then let's say you have some other stuff that's making you a bunch of money on the passive income side, you can buy real estate, do that cost seg, and wipe out the other passive income that you have. But if you're not an RE Pro, you just can't wipe out your active income.
No, very good point, Adam. Everyone can do this. It's just doesn't make sense to do. And also I saw another question in here about does it make sense to do in your highest income earning year? Possibly. I mean, and this is where the right planning comes into play. But the thing to think about is that it doesn't make sense. 100% bonus depreciation, we don't know what the future is going to be, but right now we have it and we can use it, and it rolls forward. So if you don't, let's say next year you're going to earn more income than this year, it still makes sense. More than likely, and maybe not, but more than likely makes sense to do this year, because even if you bring your income down to zero and you have $50,000, that rolls into next year. It's not like you just lose that. So the time value of money, my opinion, is like having those savings earlier so you can reinvest it and use that to buy even more properties next year when you're in a higher income bracket makes all the sense in the world. You're not going to lose those discounts. Alternatively, if you're buying properties now and you can't qualify for real estate professional or the short-term loophole, and you're just not going to be able to take advantage of the cost segregation this year, that's okay. You can retroactively do that in future years. When you do qualify, you can, at that point, put it into service and do the cost segregation at that point for that year.
Yeah.
What do you want to say on that?
Icing on the cake is the cost seg study is tax deductible.
And I saw questions about costs. The way it works is that, yes, a cost segregation study has a cost, again, tax deductible. For single family houses, it's relatively minimal. I mean, depending location, everything, $1,000 to $2,000, sometimes less, is about what you're looking at for a cost segregation study. So it makes all the sense in the world to do. The cost justifies itself. And we have some providers that do those, or you can use your own 1031 guy, or I'm sorry, cost seg professionals. Make sure they are a professional. They're actual engineers that give you reports about the property. If it's a higher priced property, a commercial, retail, industrial building, that could get into the $5,000 to $10,000 range. But for most of single family houses, $1,000 to $2,000. We do have more properties coming this year. Our inventory, by the way, guys, is actively available on our website at any point in time. This is our active marketplace, which we have many national and regional builders that showcase their inventory as exclusive pricing to the rent-to-retirement community that you can see. And we're always updating that every week with new inventory. Again, Adam put the link in the chat box if you want to set up an appointment with our team. That's the next step. Again, we don't charge investors anything. Our goal is to add value to you as the investor, to help give you some tools and resources and guidance on how you can be successful, and to help explain some of these things in greater detail and help you build a plan. We'll spend as much time as we need to with you, whether you invest with us or not. It'd be worthwhile to at least set up an appointment with our team. I guarantee you're going to walk away and have learned something.
Yeah. So Jeff, Svetlana asked, do I need to set up an LLC prior to closing? If you're closing in a DSCR in the LLC, obviously you will need to have it like that. But is it easy to change title from you to an LLC in a DSCR loan?
You can, yeah. We can close in your name, and then after you make the first payment, you can move it into the LLC. The only caveat to it, I would say, is you just got to watch out in certain states, which is not the states you guys are in, but this is something to think about with other states. You've got to watch out for transfer taxes, because you pay them at the time of purchase or refinance, and if you're transferring it into an LLC, a lot of times you have to double pay that. That's, again, not in any of the states that rent retirement's in, but that's the only warning I'll give you on that. And then regarding when we need the LLC, if we're going to close in an LLC on a DSCR loan, we need it as early as possible, because there's some extra steps that we have to do as the lender in order to make sure the docs are set up and correctly. And so it just adds a little bit of time. But other than that, same thing with conventional loans. You can move it into an LLC post-closing after you make your first payment, as long as you maintain majority ownership of that or management of the LLC.
Right. And Andy, you wanted to know, if you have an interest-only loan and you pay principal, does it lower your payment the next month if you only pay interest?
Great question. No, it does not work the way that home equity lines do or credit cards. So it'll lower the principal balance, but it will not lower the payment. You can do a one-time free recast. So just keep this in mind, that we have clients that sometimes are waiting on a sale of another property but need to close, and they intend on using that money and paying the principal down, or they have a bonus or some money that's coming in at a later date. You can take a large block of money, apply it to the principal, and recast the loan without having to pay any fees, and lower the monthly payment based off of the rate of the loan by lowering the balance. One thing I'll say is, don't go do it on your own. Don't just apply the principal that large amount to the principal. You actually have to call the servicer, whether it's us or somebody else, and let them know you'd like to take advantage of the free recast. And then there's a few steps that you have to go through to actually do that.
But the free recast does not change the rate. It just
does not change the rate. Correct. Okay. And that's one of the questions. Great question. The only way to change the rate is to refinance.
All right, we're going to stick around for about 5 or 10 more minutes. I see some more questions in. We're going to do our best to go through these. So last time, guys, to throw in any questions at us. Again, if you want to set up an appointment with our team to go through your specific scenario in greater detail, you can click on the chat box to do that. Jeff, were you able to throw in your contact info, or maybe Adam, you can do that for Jeff?
Yeah, it should be on there.
All right.
There's a link on there to schedule a time with us too, if you go to our website. That's in the
cool. Bluprint is our preferred lender. So guys, just know who you're setting up an appointment with. Of course, regardless, we're going to funnel you to them, as getting pre-approved with whatever loan you're going to use is always the next step. When an anonymous attendee said the cost segregation percentages you show seem kind of low, can you talk about that? Everyone wants to use conservative numbers when they're running napkin math. And so I use a 30% napkin math. If you're buying a $100,000 house, probably have a $30,000 percentage that you're able to accelerate the depreciation on. Most of my studies empirically in real life have come back between 35 to 44%, and sometimes we're buying unique properties. Generally speaking, new construction, you get better depreciation out of as well when you're accelerating depreciation. So It just depends on the property, but that's why we use 30% because it's a real conservative number. Megan, I think, was asking about the high tax bracket next year, and that's kind of what I was asking. Listing the property as a Megan for a short-term rental, I still encourage you to do it this year because you don't want to lose income. I mean, there's no reason to wait to lease it to get your processes in place. Short-term rentals have a long runway if it's a new rental before they're kind of optimal, and they're optimal in their performance, usually year 2 to 3. And you can take the cost segregation this year, and if it wipes out all your income and there's a negative loss that carries into next year, or you can do the same thing next year. It'll be 100% bonus depreciation as well. That doesn't disallow you to do that by putting into service. So I would say getting that thing rented sooner rather than later is important.
Mark, you want to know if cost seg works for non-new builds and new builds? Yes, you have to. It's the same amount price wise that I've seen for both. You just will likely get better depreciation on the new construction. It's because everything's new and is totally depreciable. Vahan, I don't believe we covered LLC or S Corp structures for tax purposes, and unfortunately, Matt and Amanda are not here, so I don't know about you, Zach, but I don't want to touch that one.
Well, I mean, it all depends, right? It all depends on your structure. The point is we have the people that can help you build that, and we can probably give you general information. So we'd recommend setting up a time with our team, and then just fully understanding your situation, and we can guide you to the next professional to help you put something more in place. James says, from being a completely new person to real estate investing, is the best way to begin to work with R2R first to locate a good investment property, or to work with Bluprint to first get pre-approved for a loan prior to locating an investment property?
Yes.
The chicken or the egg? I think, I mean, look, if you're going to be using financing, you're going to need to get pre-approved. So that's a necessary piece. Obviously, using leverage is a huge advantage of real estate investing because, soapbox real quick, think about this for a second. What other asset class can you borrow the majority of the money from someone else, i.e. the bank or Jeff's team or whoever, to own 100% of the asset, where you're putting a small percentage down? You get 100% of the tax benefits. You own 100%. You control 100% of the asset. You get 100% of the income from it. That someone else pays the loan off for you, the tenant, right? That's the power of leverage in real estate, multiplies everything. Back to James' question, I think you set up a time with either or both. I mean, if you really want to be proactive, certainly we want to chat with you and understand what your goals and strategies are and help you implement those. But having the right lender and being pre-approved is a necessary piece of this.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I mean, when you talk to us, the big things we want to hear from you are your goals and everything else like that. But when the rubber meets the road, I don't want to be telling you to buy a $300,000 house if you can only get approved for $200,000, right? We want to find the property that fits with what you're able to do. And so, talking with us is great, but like Zach said, when the rubber meets the road and you need the financing, we need to know what you can qualify for. So it's yes, both. But you want to be doing the pre-approval is the kind of the golden ticket to that, because nobody wants to give a contract to somebody who's not pre-approved.
It's a necessary piece. Michael asks, I'm interested in short-term rentals and long-term rentals. Is there a strategist to talk to? Any one of our team members, any one of our investment strategists would be able to help you out, Michael. They just really need to understand your position. I would say the majority of the properties that we have on our marketplace are long-term rentals. Many of them are already leased. Management is already in place. I know I saw a lot of questions about that. You don't have to use any of those parties, but I mean, we have those recommendations from these vetted and preferred partners for a reason, because they've been successful for a lot of our clients for many years. But it's ultimately up to you on where you want to invest, what you want to focus on. I would say just, again, setting up that appointment so we fully understand your goals. We can help guide you. A lot of the new construction you can rent out as a short-term rental because it's vacant. And then I touched on this earlier. I mean, you can, if you're not even able to obtain real estate professional status this year because you're not going to even meet the hour requirements, you're not married, you have full-time W-2, whatever the case is where it just is unrealistic, you can still do the cost segregation study on a property that you short-term rent. Buy a vacant house. We have like this Kickstart program with all the resources that you need to self-manage your short-term rental, and yes, you can do it from a distance. There's no requirement from the IRS on how successful that investment property has to be, the short-term rental. You do have to operate and self-manage it as short-term rental. And then you get to take that cost segregation this year, right? If you bought it this year, right now, you could do it this year. And then next year in, 2 months, you can turn it over to management as a short-term, mid-term, long-term, whatever the case is. That doesn't matter. It's about the year that you're taking the study, right? So this is something that every single person can find a strategy to deploy. It's just about getting it done. And any one of our strategists can work on that.
And unfortunately, that leads us to a little bit of a disappointing answer for anonymous attendee who asked, if we did a cost seg bonus depreciation for a short-term rental last year, what is our option this year on that same property since the bonus depreciation is now 100%? It's all about what the tax law was the year that you put it into service. So unfortunately,
sell it and buy another one. Or take out a home equity line of credit if you have equity in it. There are figure lending, by the way, and there's many other lenders as well that will do. Jeff, do you guys do any home equity line on?
We're not doing them in house. We refer everything over to figure.
Yeah, they do a great job for investment property HELOCs that can be in second position. So, I mean, that's a kind of a rare product, but there's a lot of things. Yeah, on that one property, if you already did that last year, unfortunately, last year was 40%. This year we're at 100%. So, and I think it even has to be bought after January 17th or something. But, yeah, I mean, on that
Inauguration day or later.
Well, yeah, it was 21st. Yeah.
Oh, 21st. Thank you. So, yeah, you have to buy it this year, but I mean, now is the time to be thinking about what you can do this year, right? And future years. We showed you a lot of different locations where there's excellent investing opportunity, where you can use some of these builder incentives to be into properties for little to no money down, or get a lot of your down payment back to buy more investment properties. These are really things that are strategic, that are not going to last when builders don't have excess inventory to the point that they do now. So it's really important to be a strategic investor. Jeff, as we kind of wind up here, I'm curious if you could share with the audience just any other key takeaways that you want to share from a lending side of like why now is a really strategic time to be an investor before the end of the year, and things they should be thinking about. And what are you seeing the most successful investors doing right now that you work with?
It's a great question. And so to add one thing to what your answer to James, I just want to follow up since he's new. So just so you guys know, with the pre-approval process, there's no cost to any of this. And we're only doing a TransUnion single bureau soft pull for the review. So there's no hard credit check needed. So you're getting into contract on a property, and we'll never do the hard check without your okay. And then regarding your question, so the obvious, I try to stay away from where things are with politics and where we're going with interest rates, because nobody has a crystal ball. But we had the Fed meeting today, and it looks like we may see rates tick up here a little bit in the short term. So that is, one of the big advantages of using this strategy is that it's, no matter where rates go, whether they go higher or lower, this is it's a workaround for investors to get into properties and make the math, which has been the biggest struggle here over the last 3 years, is just trying to make the deal analysis work. So that's part of it. And then I think the biggest thing that is separating the investors that are actually building their businesses versus the ones that are stuck on the sidelines is the analysis paralysis. I mean, there are so many opportunities out there right now. I mean, we've seen rates dip about 3/4 to a full point over the last 60 to 90 days. We've seen about an 1/8 uptick here just today because of what happened with the Fed. Won't get too deep into the details on that because we're tight on time. But at this moment, we don't really know where things are going. And so the quicker you can get into a position where you can lock and start really looking at properties, because like Adam said, you don't really know what you're going to qualify for unless you've been pre-approved. And until you have a pre-approval letter in hand, there's not much you're going to be able to do. You can't submit an offer on a property. We've seen clients that have lost out on properties because they put the cart before the horse and they went and wanted to go put an offer, but had not gone through the pre-approval process first. So that would be my best advice for anybody that's looking to do anything, this year, is to get going as quickly as possible. Time really is of the essence.
Yeah, and I want to remind everybody, this happens every year, but people seem to forget. There's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
There's Christmas. And this year, I think we were looking at the calendar together recently, Jeff, and I think it's between Christmas and New Year. There's really only like 2 or 3 business days this year.
Yeah, the way it falls this year. And, you've got to get these properties in operation for at least a week. And got to keep in mind, title companies, appraisers, everybody's checking out, around Thanksgiving and around the holidays, and everything slows down. We make sure that we're staffed up, but the problem is all the other companies that we have to work with in order to get these deals done. It just, everything slows down. And that's where the delays occur. And every once in a while, over the last 4 or 5 years, we have 1 or 2 deals that end up closing late because we just can't get an appraisal back quick enough, or title's unresponsive. So the sooner the better if you're planning on buying a property this year.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is if appraisers are unavailable, there's not much we can do.
Getting your pre-approval now, right, and starting the process now. Adam, what is our busiest month of the year?
That's a great question.
Oh, it's November, December. December closings are huge. And you know what? Every January, I hear from people who closed December, 25th on, and they didn't enjoy the last week of their year because they didn't go under contract early enough. Because you have to remember, not only are you talking about all these other people helping you close, you're involved in it too. So you're having to schedule stuff around, like, do you really want to go through Christmas with your family, making sure that you've submitted your most recent tax returns and trying to find a good time to meet a notary to sign and to, go to the bank and wire money and all of that stuff? Like, this is your life too. So if you can close like December 10th, congratulations, you have 3 weeks to enjoy December. For that person who's trying to close on the 30th, hope you had a good Christmas.
Average closing. Jeff's team does a great job. I mean, if you are in a pinch, they do a great job, especially the DSCR stuff, like closing them very quickly. But do yourself a favor, like Adam said, and if this is something you're trying to take advantage of and close another property before the end of the year, now's the time to do it, right? You don't want to create a stressful situation where you're having to navigate the holidays, wondering if you're going to close before the end of the year. And sometimes that's out of your control because the holidays are downtimes for a lot of people, and you got to close it, right? And so the 45 days is the average closing time. So point is, guys, hopefully you've learned something tonight. These are some of the advantages on the tax side and on the strategy side that can really help you make some big moves. I always tell people that real estate investing is I think the most predictable way to wealth. Yes, it doesn't happen overnight. Nothing does, but it also doesn't take a lifetime to create generations of wealth and financial independence. The real estate investing, it just takes consistency and applying some of the strategies that we talked about tonight over time. And within a few dedicated years of investing, you can make a huge impact on your financial situation. So again, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Hopefully the Dodgers are doing better, my man.
Yeah,
and
it's coming on. I haven't checked it, so we'll see.
Real
quick too, Robert Price, I see another question here. Just schedule a time with me and then we can go through everything, all of your questions.
We will be emailing out a recording of this tomorrow if you guys want to rewatch it or you miss some things. But next steps, if you're serious about accomplishing your next deal before the end of the year, schedule time with Jeff's team, schedule time with our team at Rent to Retirement. Let's help you build a plan and a strategy. Even if you can't employ it this year, you can start planning for next year. And these are some of the big things I think that make the most difference, guys. So everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to educate yourselves. Hopefully this has been beneficial, and we look forward to connecting with all of you.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.